Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Real Spill, a podcast where I spill on all things multifamily advocacy and how we as industry professionals can work with our elected officials, stakeholders, and allies to bring about change for the rental housing industry. My guests are subject matter experts whose unique perspectives will help listeners understand how the issues impact them. Let's get into The Real Spill. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Real Spill here on the Multifamily Media Network. And with me today are two gentlemen who likely need no introduction if you are from our neck of the woods or if you attend NAA events, but I'm going to introduce them anyway. Here are my friends, Todd Whitlow and Bryan Holliday. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yes, and collectively you are now known as the Associated.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice to be associated with you guys. We work a lot together on apartment association committees and have known each other for years. So it's great to have you guys join today and be able to give listeners an overview of what you do and launch for your own podcast. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's been something that's been in the works. We're super excited about it. We just recorded our first official episode on Monday. We had episode 0 before Advocate, and this was our first actual guest on Monday that we recorded. It should be released here in, I guess, another week-ish or so.
That's awesome. So it's in the production phase now, getting ready for to go live.
We're working on getting into the can so it can drop. Are those the right industry terms?
I think so. I think you're right on the money there, Bryan. So you both obviously work within the rental housing industry. And starting with Bryan, can you tell listeners what you do, like an overview of what you do?
How long's the podcast? This is going to be great. No, so I started my own company in 2019 and broke away. I was working for the Charlotte Apartment Association, doing government affairs work under Ken Szymanski. And I was going to go and start my own PR advocacy firm located in the local market that I'm in. And lo and behold, the first client I got was an apartment association. The second client I got was an apartment association. Later, I added another apartment association, and I done some work for other apartment associations in between here and there. So I kind of said, well, I can't seem to get away from the apartment association work and what's going on. So I started to lean into it, and that's where CLT PR management came from. And we're working with different aspects of the association. We now have 4 employees, which is kind of exciting. All part-time employees, but we offer membership services. We offer communication services, emails, website, Novi work. We offer work in social media, and then accounting services. And maybe one of these days we'll slide in government affairs. So that's the next big thing to do. So that's kind of, I think I joke with Todd and say, I don't actually in the industry. I think I'm industry adjacent. So we're working primarily on the association side, but it's been fun. And I think we're on a year 5 or 6. I can't tell if we count COVID or not. So 2019 to 2025, is that 6 years or is that 5 years? Because we throw a year out. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a great timing to start a business.
I know. It was, yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. I was actually, with COVID, I was with Todd when the world shut down. So we were walking in the streets of DC. And remember, with COVID officially started when Tom Hanks got COVID. That was like the official start date right there, because Tom Hanks got COVID. The basketball game got canceled, and then everything just started going downhill. And so Todd and I were walking back from some event, and we were talking about Tom Hanks and what's going on and all this kind of stuff. And it was just kind of really surreal coming back from, where was that? It was
Advocate.
It was Advocate, but it was a NAA dinner or something, reception that we were at. But It was, yeah, kind of, you remember where you were situation. Anyway,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not sure how COVID relates to my company, but that's what we do. So,
I was there that week too. That was my first Advocate, the first
was it
ever.
really?
It was my first plane ride.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was terrified. Like, I have, like, since I was a little kid, terrified of being on a plane, like, because I'd never experienced it, like, I would try to put myself there, like, "Okay, you're on the runway, you're taking off. Oh god, we're gonna die." I mean, it was like doom and gloom, and I had, like, horrible dreams about it too, and then my favorite singer, y'all know I'm a big hip hop R&B fan, Aaliyah, passed away August the 25th, 2001, and in a plane crash. I was terrified. So Joy we were flying from GSP, and I had to have my prayer stone and my liquor drink like a good Southern Baptist that morning at 10 o'clock to get on the plane. I was so terrified. And we had so much turbulence landing into Ronald Reagan that the plane was doing things that, like, Joy was telling our then board president, Tana, like, later she told me this, don't tell Spills that this is not normal. Like, I was like sweating. It was awful. And the lady beside me goes, "Oh, this is nothing. I've had the whole mechanical landing system go out before, and they've had to manually land it." And I'm like, "Oh, God." So then we get there, and this whole COVID thing starts, and we're hearing, when you get home, you better get toilet paper, and, they're going to close everything down. And finding out where people are leaving the conference left and right. We had to get board approval to change our flights to come home early because we're going to have to spend extra money. And it was tough. It was definitely an interesting first Advocate experience. Congressman Timmons, who we've had a longstanding relationship with, was like furiously. Were you in that meeting, Todd, where he was like furiously washing his hands?
I believe I was. I think he as was commonplace on the Hill that year. No one really shook hands or even fist bumped.
No, it was like
And
the hard
so,
nod.
yeah.
Hi.
Well, yeah, I was supposed to have a meeting with, who was Trump's chief of staff from Asheville? I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, it was a congressman in Chuck Edwards' office right now, and we had a meeting. We had a meeting we were scheduled with him, and then he wasn't going to run again. It's like, it's fine. I don't really care for actually meeting with him. It's kind of a lame duck. He's gonna be a nobody. I can't think of his name. And then all of a sudden comes like he's then appointed as the chief of staff. It's like, oh, well, now I really want to meet with him. And then he got COVID. And then it's like, oh, I'm glad we're not meeting with him. And it was like this really weird thing. And then he got in trouble for being registered to vote at a trailer park he didn't own. That was way down the road.
It's like, what are they doing? They got to do better. Oh my goodness. That's
But
funny.
yeah.
And Todd, can you tell folks about what you do?
So I serve over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years. I serve as the director of legal operations for the entire firm. Our footprint is North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. We're I think maybe a week away from going live in Virginia. I got sworn in at the beginning of April in Virginia, so we will be doing work there. So in my role, I deal with a lot of the really, really complicated messes, but then I supervise our state department heads in each of the respective states. I'm licensed in all 4 states that we're in currently. And so as a result of that, I kind of make sure that we have a certain quality standard that we're trying to do, whether it be responsiveness, preparedness, and being at the cutting edge of the industry and making sure that we're aware of any legal changes or updates. And so I help disseminate that information across our team. I help make sure that we're getting back to people in a timely manner, and that we do something called capacity surveys, which kind of measures where each of our associates and legal team are on their week as to, on a scale of 0 to 10, how busy they are. It helps us better align and assign new cases that come in or new work, so that clients aren't waiting. It's not getting log jammed with one particular person. So I help spearhead that, as well as some larger firm initiatives. And then I get to participate in things like this, things like the associated podcast. I do regularly speak at multiple conferences, whether it's from an education standpoint or as a facilitator, moderating a panel of individuals. I do get to regularly participate in committee involvement, whether that's sitting on a board as general counsel or as a member. So it is. I'm kind of a brand ambassador at this point. I still do practice law, but I really limit where I take on those things to be the more complicated things, unless it's something that really needs a quick response and everybody is log jammed or we're short staffed somewhere because of vacation. I'll jump in and can answer those questions in any of the states that I'm licensed in. So that's kind of a month to month view of kind of what my role is and the requirements that it puts on me.
Yeah, you're a busy man. There's so many times we're on committee meetings and you're in a different time zone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes it is a juggle. We're in a bit of the gauntlet now. When we were trying to schedule our recording of the associated podcast for Monday, Bryan sent me some available dates, and I then sent a long list of from mid-April through mid-May of when I could squeeze it in. Originally, actually, it would have been challenging to do this week because I was going to go to NMHC's conference, their spring conference in Chicago, but after a number of trips and getting some feedback from my boss, my wife at home, I decided that it would be good to pass on NMHC and stay at home and make sure that I'm at least there for this week, which then opened the door to be able to record both our podcast and be a wonderful guest on this podcast.
Yeah, you're a smart man. You're a smart man. You got to check with the boss. You got to check
That's
with the
right.
boss. Because we've got two conferences. I'm not going to AANC, but we have SCAA next week. It seems like it works out that way every year, even unintentionally. That the South Carolina conference is one week. Next week, you've got the North Carolina conference. And then last week was the VAMA conference in Virginia. We're going to have some very tired coworkers.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, you go to those conferences, it's one thing if that's your primary obligation at the time, but the emails don't stop. They keep coming.
No, no. And sometimes they need a quick turnaround too. And you're like, uh-oh, got to hold up.
And this is the thing. It's interesting, and primarily a lot of the stuff that Todd and I are talking about on the Associated is if you look back, VAMA, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, all operated as separate entities, and the people that were inside that state worked inside that state. So, like both the places you guys work at, there'd be regional. You would be like North Carolina would be, South Carolina would be where you're at. You don't have this large regional piece. And more than that, even if you start getting back like 20, 25 years ago, in the cities, it wasn't even state. It was like, you were in Charlotte, you were in Greenville, you were in Roanoke. This is where you were. This is where you worked. And then all of a sudden the region started growing a bit larger. And then now you guys are multi-state, and it's not just you, it's so many other people. And we're still operating under the old mentality that you're just here in our single city working here, and this is your primary association and all that kind of stuff. And no one's thinking, I don't want to say no one, but we're not really having these conversations of like, how is the association working now or should be working now to where it was 20 and 30 years ago? What are we doing that hasn't caught up with us? And for you guys, I can't even imagine how many association emails you get over the course of a week, because I know how many association emails that we send out for one association. And then you put that on top, like, you're getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in North Carolina, South Carolina. Like, it's interesting when you start thinking it as a regional perspective. And I don't know how many people are approaching this from a regional perspective.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And with the regions I'm involved with, mainly it's government affairs. So I'm very fortunate that it's just government affairs. But I think about like Samantha Amato or like Stephanie Schroeder, Todd with y'all's firm, the amount of emails they must get for like sponsorship opportunities and events and coordinating all of that. And it's interesting on this side now, because y'all know when I first came to the firm, I was just so burned out. I needed to get out any way I could, and had my eye on the firm for a while. And it's like, Chris, what can I do? And so I was processing cases for a long time, and I wasn't getting a lot of those emails. I didn't see some of the behind the scenes stuff because I was heavy in the cases every day and making sure that those were sent to the appropriate courts. But now being on this side, oh my stars, like they make it look easy a lot of times, but there is so much work that goes into strategically placing different people on your team in areas that are outside of their region. I mean, we've got people on both firms that are rock stars that are wonderful networkers and people connectors. And it just makes sense to say, okay, like sending me to Bama's legislative day, meeting people there, seeing how that runs can only be beneficial for the associations that I'm involved with here in South Carolina that don't have the level of committee participant volunteers, active volunteers, can bring back ideas from those associations that have been doing it and doing it very well for years. And so, Todd, you, of course, are an attorney. When did you know that this is the path in life you wanted to take?
There's no epiphany for me. I mean, I'm not one of those people who decided in high school that, I want to be an attorney. Growing up, I was really good at math. I also enjoyed history. I actually went to UNC Chapel Hill with plans to either be a doctor or a dentist, one of the two. I got into my sophomore year and determined that I really hated science in college. I did not like chemistry. I did not like biology, and I could not see a path forward there where I could get to where I wanted to get without going through that gauntlet, which are some fairly difficult classes at UNC Chapel Hill. So I transitioned to a major. I was a little bit late switching, so I ended up with a major that is now it's like human resources. At the time, it was called industrial relations, and it is economics, sociology, and psychology based. So it's really looking at the workplace and the economics of the workplace. And I have a minor in history from Carolina. I really decided to go to law school primarily because historically, in my senior year in high school, I was involved in Health Occupation Students of America, which is a different story for a different day. But one of the competitions that had at a national level, it it was health occupation students, but it was a creative problem solving competition. So you were given this massive problem within the medical industry. You were given like a 3-hour span during this particular conference or competition, which was in Nashville, Tennessee, to come up with a solution to that problem, a proposed solution with steps and parameters in place. And I really enjoyed that component of it. And I got a sense that that's what being a lawyer was kind of like, was trying to problem solve as opposed to scorched earth litigation. And it also helped that I wasn't ready to get out into the real world. And I heard law school, there was one test and it was at the end of the semester. And I was like, where do I sign up for that? So I think so. I went to law school basically to extend my education. And to be quite honest, if being in college paid money, I would probably still be there because I really enjoy learning. But once I got into law school, I really fell in love with the process. And I treated it like a job, which is what many of the attorneys that I interned for or clerked for the summer before I went to law school advised me to do. And whereas it took me a little while in undergrad to kind of find my way and start making the good grades that I was used to in high school and middle school, because I treated law school like a job, I was extremely successful from the jump. I mean, in fact, it's funny. I knew people from Carolina who knew people I was in law school with. When those people I was in law school with went home at Christmas time, they were talking about law school and they ran into people that I knew from Carolina. And they said, "Oh, another friend of mine from Carolina is in your class. His name's Todd Whitlow. And do you know him?" And they were like, "Oh, yeah, I know him." And they were like, "Oh, how's he doing? Is he doing pretty well?" And they would say, he's like, I mean, at that point, I was number 2 in my class. And they were like, do we have the same Todd Whitlow that we're talking about? And so it's really a matter of treating it like a job. And I think from that standpoint, I did really well in law school. And then, I got out and just kind of found my way to this industry. Working at Brownlee Law Firm was my fourth law firm in 5 years. So I was trying to figure out what environment I wanted, what I liked, and really within 3 months of starting there and engaging with the clients within this industry and forming relationships, I didn't even really start working or serving through associations until like 2010, but I started at 2007. And once I really started participating, I would never leave this industry. I mean, I love it. And so, I mean, I know that's a really probably gave you more bits and pieces than you wanted, but there was no like epiphany of, oh, I want to go to law school. It really was more of how do I extend this college thing? And then just happened to like law school and do pretty well at it.
That is awesome. I remember you sharing with me that you'd done really well on your LSAT at one point, and us having that conversation. That weren't you playing tennis or something like that?
I did attempt to walk
Oh,
on to the tennis team at Carolina, but I also was pledging a fraternity, and then to add to that, the third triumvirate almost flunked out of college. So, yeah, my parents were not pleased, and they made me quit all those things and focus on schoolwork.
I'm picturing the movie The Neighbors.
Yeah, yeah, it was probably some of that. I mean, I was joking with someone who I grew up with recently that we got together. Unfortunate circumstances. It was a funeral for one of our friends' fathers, but getting to see people that I went to high school with and to college with, and they have kids who are about to go to college, and we were just talking about the benefits of not having social media in existence while I was in college.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I'm glad you shared all that though, because I didn't know. I was genuinely curious, like how your path crossed, like how the Brownlee Law Firm ended up with Brownlee, Whitlow, and Prate, and all of that. So that's really cool. I guess I hadn't realized that you'd originally worked with Will, and so fortunate that y'all's paths crossed because of the difference you've been able to make in the industry. And really, and for me personally, like when I first met you, I'm like, oh my God, he's so smart. It made me feel dumb, but then I'm like, no, he is so cool and down to earth. If I just ask him, Todd, what does this mean in layman's terms? What is going on? That you're not gonna make me feel stupid. You're gonna be like, no, this is what it means, and lay it out because it's meant a lot to me personally. And I want to thank you for that, for guiding me over the last few years as I've been kind of thrown into some leadership positions that at times I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not capable, or I don't know enough, I don't have the experience. But having folks like you to lean on has helped me learn and grow as a person, as a committee chair, as an even employee of our firm. So I want to thank you for that. I appreciate that.
That is extremely kind, Katie. I certainly appreciate that. I'm sure that you are more. I know that you're more than capable of finding those answers to those questions beyond someone like me. So, but I'm glad that I was available. Glad that I could help provide that insight and those answers. I think one of my favorite things to do is to take a complex subject and figure out how to analogize it or parable it or create a metaphor to help people understand, because you can explain it, but if you can put it into the context of a metaphor or an analogy or something along those lines, it actually gives more context to the explanation. And so it's one of my favorite things to try and figure out how to do.
Yeah, I love that. And y'all know I went to college to be a paralegal. Will's Trust and Probate. The attorney who taught that, y'all are familiar with Patewood in Greenville, like the whole Patewood area. He probated the Patewood estate. So this was a very large thing. He used metaphors too in generation skipping trusts. He was like, if Junior's going to put his inheritance here, then you could do a generation skipping trust to the third so you could bypass it. And we were laughing so hard through that, but we all remembered it. And even in talking about trust and that kind of thing in personal matters with family and that kind of thing, thank God we don't have anybody like that. But it popped up in my head as an intrusive thought. I'm like, well, if Junior puts it up as, but it works. It makes it stick with you. And Bryan, same for you. I'm very fortunate to have met you and to have been invited to the SMART conference, and that was a lot of fun. And how did you get started in this? Like, what were you doing? How did you find your way? When did you know you wanted to work in government affairs?
Well, so in high school, I volunteered with some campaigns and started getting plugged in and was having some fun and really enjoyed my history teachers and in that aspect. And then went to college, small college in Michigan, transferred to University of Colorado, graduated from there, and then decided, yeah, I'm not going to do poli-sci. Sorry for all you poli-sci majors, but when you graduate with a poli-sci degree, you have two choices, like, to like work at Starbucks, to run for office at the age of 21. Like, you don't really have or you could go back to school and become a teacher and teach other people poli-sci. So it really doesn't go anywhere. I'm not going to go poli-sci. If I were to do it all over again, it probably would be a lawyer and increase my rate by threefold. But I did the business route. I did marketing, and I was a marketing major and focused on that. Fun enough is I moved to Charlotte from Colorado. My first real grown-up job, I was employee relations manager. So you use all your marketing and sales stuff, and it's internal, it's employee relations stuff. And then I was hired from there, and I went to work for the development company, and I was the community relations manager there. And then real estate downturn, went back, did some political consulting work in that, and then I was hired on as the government relations person with the association. And I looked around and said, okay, I've done employee, community, government. What's left? I'm going to open a public relations firm. Now I've covered all the relations. So, So basically, at the end of the day, everything that we do on the government affairs side of stuff is because we have a passion for the policy pieces, but it's really all relationship work. I mean, it's stuff that you go back the other way. And and you guys are talking about using analogies and explaining stuff. When I talk to people, I tell them I'm a translator. I'll talk with an engineer or somebody over here and understand what their problem, and I'll go to somebody who has no idea what we're talking about, and then be able to explain what it is in everyday term or in polytalk or whatever it is, and then vice versa. So go back and say, here's what the government people are saying, bring that back to you. Here's what it is, and in your engineering mind or whatever my sales mind is, you think you want to get to here, but here's how it works, and kind of translating that through in the communication piece. It really does come down to people who do the government relations stuff. It's the relations is actually the important stuff. That's the hard part to teach. The government stuff is either you pick it up or you don't. So in that piece. So I can't get away from the multifamily industry because I love the concept of housing. And providing housing and just the overall thing of what it is. And then I get so frustrated on everyone working against the concept of housing. And so it's it should be so easy. Like, hey, providing housing, that's a really important thing. Let's make it easier. And everyone's like, hey, providing housing, let's just see if we can make it more complicated for some odd reason. So I keep kind of getting attracted to that. I think it's the social justice piece is probably built in me a little bit to I'm a big fan of a big believer that the most important thing for people to be stabilized is housing and figure it out. And, I'm still believe in the fact that you have to have public, private housing too. So if you don't have a market where people are able to make money on housing, then it flips over to the government, and that's not a good option either. And so having that work that balance out, I think is, I don't know, I just got a stupid passion for it. So I really love it. So.
Yeah, you do. And I'm learning some of this myself with some of the stakeholder groups that I find myself working with. And one is an initiative here, like you talked about, a public-private relationship. The United Way, a lot of times, is at the head in United Ministries. And there's 30 organizations in Greenville that have started something called Greenville Together through the United Way. And it's a pilot program. I recorded with the gentleman who's over it yesterday, and that episode will be live Friday. They're doing the housing surge now. Their goal is to house 80 people off the street with wraparound, a ridiculous amount of just supportive services. You're on the street right now. How can we get you not to be on the street, because homelessness and access to housing, we see it when we travel. When we go to DC, we see the folks that are unhoused. Especially Chicago, San Diego, oh my goodness. And we don't want that coming to Greenville. So I'm finding that, like you say, I can be that piece from the multifamily rental housing industry, because everyone has the best intentions. I'm finding that we all really want the same thing. It's just getting on the same page with how to go about it and having those tough conversations. And sometimes I'm like, Todd, what does this mean? Help.
There's a book called What the Dog Saw by Malcolm Gladwell. Have you ever read this?
No.
It's really old. It's one of Malcolm Gladwell's very first books. It was a compilation of the stories that he wrote. And in there, they talked about the concept. I think it came out of Nashville or something. It was called Housing First concept. And this is where it's now. This concept's probably now 25 years old. But the idea is that you can't address people's other primary issues until you address housing first. So like if you don't have stabilized housing, you can't get people, off drugs and alcohol. If you don't have stabilized housing, you can't help people find full-time employment. If you don't have stabilized housing, you can't start addressing domestic violence issues. Like you have to start with housing first. And what they found out was, and whatever the city this was, is that there was like 8 or 9 homeless people that were carrying like 75% of the homeless cost in this town. And when they went just to bring them into housing and figure out you just housing them first, it actually brought the cost down, because people are going to jail, people are getting injured, people are going to the hospital, and all these social costs. And so this argument goes back and forth of should we be subsidizing this? Should we not be subsidizing this? And the reality is when it comes to housing, we're subsidizing it one way or the other. I mean, even if with homeless people, it's like if they don't have homes, there's still a lot of subsidy that's going into helping people be full-time homeless. And so it's interesting when you start digging into these conversations. And the funny thing is you have a conversation with somebody who's just so naive into it. And they're like, here's what we should do. It's like, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. We didn't even think about that in the affordable housing conversation. Shoot, where have you been? Like, we've been working this 30 years and you now have the answer. Yeah. Like everything is so complicated. You start peeling stuff back and there's no simple solution in there, but everybody comes out with like, here, you know what we should do? Okay. Yeah, that's exactly it. So.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what this program is doing. It's the housing first. And it's privately funded, so no government funds. There's not a voucher. They'll pay rent for up to 2 years, but every case is handled by a caseworker who is available 24/7. If that person needs to go to Carolina Behavioral Health, for mental health issues, or Marshall Pickens, which is another area or another facility in Greenville that kind of helps with like detoxing and that kind of thing. The hospital, like they are just really throwing it there. And say, for instance, they need to be rehoused. Say they came to Greenville and it's just not going to work out, but they need help going home. This person will get there, or this program will still assign a caseworker to them once they're intaked through like the Greenville Police Department. It's going to be in the city of Greenville so far. And the way that this looks, and I've looked at some of the agreements, now you're going to want me to have y'all involved in this and be like, y'all need to come on this call. I'm going to call it 11:45 if y'all ain't doing that. But because these agreements are like, I've never seen anything like this. Like it's the amount of supportive services that are available and the funds that are available. A person would almost have to want to fail. Like as I'm looking through it from my perspective, from my lens as a long-time property manager, it's going to be interesting to see what the results are going to be, because success can look like a few things. Of course, if we can rehouse these 80 people, the next phase is getting the people out of the emergency shelters, because they're not the most vulnerable. They actually have housing. They're in a shelter. But Greenville has no family shelters. If God forbid I were to find myself in that situation, I would have to go to one shelter, my husband would have to go to another, and our 16-year-old would have to go to another. But this program with Housing First is eliminating that issue and providing housing for them. And we've, of course, had to play some devil's advocate because they want to avoid eviction. But, in some cases, that is your only remedy for default. But if the caseworker is available 24/7, people have their biases too. Like, what does someone look like, or what are their behaviors and actions. And even last week, I had to speak up because they were talking in the landlord engagement event about, well, how do we inform the community, like the property, basically the residents of the property, that we're participating in this program and that we're going to have people who are homeless? And I'm like, oh, you can't. Like, you can't tell them this person moving in is homeless. They're no different from anyone else. Like, you can't say, oh, we've got a lady moving in that's going through a divorce, like, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes it helps to have like the different perspectives in those groups. And I've gotten Monica involved now too because of her connection with Entryway. Because some of these people, a lot of them have jobs, which I think is a huge misconception. A lot of people who are homeless are working. And so if they aren't, though, the whole goal, and it has a step out program too. There's a heavy, lift on the step in and a heavy lift on the step out to make sure that they're good and secure. And Entryway might be able to help them. And then again, with Entryway, our industry is somewhat solving its own problem of lack of labor force. So then they have a discount likely with their rent. But to your point, the housing first is, in my opinion, the way to go, because you can't treat the mental health. Like if you go and you have all the mental health treatment in the world, your therapy and everything, and then you go back to your unhoused environment, there you're just reminded, and it's right in your face again, that this is what's going on. At least gives them some hope. It's like a Hosea movement or something like that is the terminology used yesterday. But it's involving like 30 different organizations, from Safe Harbor, the women's shelter, to United Ministry, Miracle Hill. Lots of folks came in and gave their opinion and input on this. And if it works, then this could be replicated in other areas that are starting to see that trickle in that Greenville is. Like I see them going down Wade Hampton Boulevard all the time. So it's starting to become here too. I don't know if we've talked about this. How did you guys meet? Was it through associations, or do y'all remember when you met?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when we met. I think I think Bryan and I've known each other since he was in government affairs position in Charlotte. At that time, I don't know that our firm was participating a great deal. That would have still been when it was Brownlee Law Firm. And I don't know that, Will may have been participating more in Charlotte, but I don't think many of the rest of us were. But I do know Bryan from participating with AANC, regularly lobbying in Raleigh. And then obviously Advocate. I think I've been going to Advocate for well over a decade at this point. It's probably been, 13 or 15 years of attending the Advocate conference. So, I think through those channels, I would say, I don't remember exactly when we met. I don't know if Bryan does.
It probably had to be at a conference. It was probably either ANC or Advocate conference. And because I joined the association after both the firms were officially formed and involved. So it was probably one of those conferences. And to be honest with you, it was probably at a bar. It's probably at the hotel bar. We were probably just sitting there chatting and then talking through some stuff, and then having this conversation about things that are going on and kind of talking about it. So it wasn't this, we're buddies for life quick moment. It was I'm going to hang out with Todd when I go to the conference if he's still around.
You guys are a lot of fun at conferences. We work hard, but we also like to wind down and have fun, and also have these types of conversations, because obviously that's what led to you guys starting the Associated, and that's what we're talking about today. Like, how can you tell listeners about your podcast, what it's going to be about, how they can listen?
Katie, we realize that people have so much fun hanging out and talking with us that we shouldn't just do it privately, like at a bar. We should allow people to come and enjoy the process. And because Todd and I are both givers, we put together this podcast and the Associated. So that's really bad explanation. I think Todd can probably explain it a lot better.
I love that. The way you say it, you need to charge admission.
Yeah. We could do that at some point. We may. I mean, we've got some ideas in the pipeline for kind of leading into some conferences. But I mean, the very I'll say short story long. I'm going to take the opposite of what we normally do. I mean, our firm and me in particular have wanted to do a podcast for quite a while. We joke with Mark Sharp that it was going to either be Todd Talks or a Toddcast, one or the other. And but the more and more we looked at it, the more and more we thought about it. We were either going to do a production room here in the office, but coming up with the content, coming up with the questions, as you may very well know, getting guests lined up, editing on the backside of it, and doing all the recording is a ton of work. So a little bit, probably at this point, over a year ago, we were at a conference. I think Norm may have mentioned to Bryan that I was thinking about doing a podcast. Bryan had mentioned to maybe Norm that he was thinking about doing a podcast. Bryan comes up to me and says, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And I was like, oh, me too. And so then we started talking about it a little bit more and a little bit more. I think we talked about it at that particular conference. We talked about it again at Rawls last year. And then we discussed it one more time at AOD. And Bryan was like, I think I've got what it will take to move it forward. It will help, get the thing rolling, and then we'll see where it goes. But in general, I mean, there's lots of industry podcasts out there, and this is no offense to any of them, but we didn't want to just join the noise, so to speak, and talk about the industry. While, yes, we're going to touch the industry on the podcast, it's really focused on the association component of it and looking at how we get members engaged, how we develop any emerging leaders and keep them plugged into the pipeline, how we get people who are been in leadership positions and are stepping out of them, continuing to be involved, and they're not just checking a box and saying, okay, I've done my time, now it's somebody else's turn. Keeping people engaged and participating. And as we said, I think in our episode 0, we don't pretend to have the answers. We're just facilitating the discussion. We don't want people to think, oh, these guys who don't, as me in particular, who don't run associations are going to come tell other associations how to run their association and how to improve it and make it better. That's not something that at least I don't think we intend to do. We're just getting ideas from people who are running successful associations and kind of spreading that gospel, so to speak, and sharing it with other people who are listening. So, I mean, the ideal listener is really anybody who participates in an association, whether they're volunteering, they're serving as a committee, they're the education director, they're government affairs director, they're the executive director, or they just generally have an interest in participating in the association. Any of those people would be ideal guests. And I think, for that matter, anybody within the industry, as Bryan indicated, we're going to have some fun with this. It's not going to be all seriousness. We will always have some levity to each and every episode. So, it kind of came about that way. And when Bryan said, I've got a sound guy, I've got a producer, all you have to do is really show up and then from time to time find a guest. I was like, that sounds great. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, basically, we're all connected to the associations, right? And there's a lot of people that are in the industry that are not connected to the associations. And so all the podcasts kind of reference association stuff and things like that. And we're really taking it head on to say, hey, this is the association where the industry is. And when we're at conferences, when we're together, we have so many conversations about how the industry is changing, how the association is changing, what things aren't working, are working, and stuff like that. And so these are side conversations that we have, and we're bringing those side conversations forward in a way to be like, hey, we know there's a line of demarcation, and it was COVID, what we were talking about earlier. The way that associations operated before COVID and the way the associations operate after COVID shouldn't be the same because the world's not the same in the way that associations engage. And so, and some of that is when the old system is working, how long do you drive it till the wheels fall off? and then, or the thing is like, hey, we know that we had to take these innovations coming on. Smaller associations are doing some fun stuff. When do you do that? How do you share some ideas? And then not only that, but like, if everyone has to go out and fail the same way, maybe we can learn from where others have failed and be like, we tried this and it wasn't working, or here's some ideas of what we're doing. And the big part is it's that Todd talked about, it's engagement. And there's just a whole generation of people who just don't understand the value of what membership associations bring. And there's a whole generation of old membership association volunteers who really believe that everything they were doing in the past is going to work in the future. And so it's just having those conversations to figure out what that looks like. And we don't have answers. We just usually, that's why we're the host. We just ask the questions and then come in, and made a great conversation recently with Elizabeth Riley and talking about like how she was engaging the association before and how things have changed in the past, but like some things that she does actually carries over and it gets lost. She writes letters. She writes 5 to 10 letters to people a week. And if you think about that, and it's a cliffhanger. You get to find out about the letters on our episode because it's a really big issue. But the fact is that that's an engagement that's lost. Like receiving a personal letter, I'm like, wow, I write letters maybe like 5 a year, but to do 5 or 10, that is a really good idea from the past that can be carried forward into the future to really helping engage people. And it's one of those extra reaches.
This is going to be great and so needed. And like you said, there's so many people that are in the industry but are not familiar with the fact that they are part of something so much bigger than themselves. And I found that to be true for myself. I was involved in Upper State when I first started in like 2002, right? Like my first event was a supplier appreciation event at what was then Cheap Wings and Firewater. And I wasn't even old enough to go upstairs. Like I was 18, right? And had no idea, had a great time. And my boss was heavily involved. And then I ended up working for a company but they weren't as involved, and was not the manager. So I didn't necessarily have a say so in what I did, but, having received a credential or gotten a credential 20 years ago, y'all, I got my NALP or CALP as it is now. Jackie Ramstead, if y'all know who she is, she was an apartment all-star. Yep. She presented me with my NALP. And so then I would go back and teach it every year because I loved leasing. Like if I, could go back in time, that was some of the most fun ever. But all the classes that were offered, all the education, and that there was really a method to the madness. Leasing is somewhat of a science. It involves a lot of psychology and being able to read buying cues and all that stuff. It provided so much more fulfillment to my career. So when I was able to get back involved, when I had my property, and Joy called me and said, guess who the new AE is? And I'd worked with Joy on site in 2003. She taught me everything I knew about marketing, like beat the streets marketing is what I used to call it. We used to laminate engagement announcements from the newspaper and write a letter, to your point, to the newly engaged couple, inviting them to tour our property and make it their new home once they were married and ready. So when I knew she was going to be the AE, she's like, I want you to be involved. And I think you'd be a great candidate for our board of directors. I didn't even know they had a board. I thought whoever was speaking at the meeting drew the short straw, like, oh, lucky you. But it really enhanced my career. Like I would not be where I am today if I were not involved in the Upper State Apartment Association, because it was nothing I did on my property. Granted, the year I won Community Manager of the Year, 2017, Labesack and Brownlee sponsored the award and Chris presented it to me. So it was one of those kismet kind of things, but it all went back to my involvement. People are really shorting themselves in development as a person and as a professional by not being involved. So I wish there was a way to, like, once you guys get this out and launched, to see how many more people like dial in, like what membership numbers. That's where you can make some money. Like, hey, I drove your membership. Like, oh, you get referrals. You should say, associations take referrals for new members. Like, talk to all of them. Okay, if you get a new member, put it
forward slash the associated is the discount code.
Yes.
Well, I do have breaking news. Speaking of that, Todd, I did find out this morning that Russ Webb, will be our next guest. So we're really excited about that, which is also fun because, Katie, the conference you guys are going to next week, Russ is going to talk about AI and stuff like that. And if there is a guy who really knows about like the associations and the way things that are worked and super plugged in, he was early on the list to get in. So we're excited about him coming on as our next guest in May.
Oh, that's going to be a great episode. He went and did our customer service rally. He came in and spoke 2 years ago, a little over a year ago, this past January. It had just a wealth of information, and that's going to be a great episode. How frequently are you guys dropping episodes?
Monthly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Todd has a real job. And he has a lot of volunteering jobs too that he has. Yeah. And so scheduling at what we're actually, I think this is coincidental right now, but we're actually kind of lining things up before conferences and doing that. And then we're going to try to figure out how to do some in-person stuff at the conferences to grab some stuff together. And as Todd mentioned, we also want to figure out some fun ways to incorporate things kind of going forward. Being more not collaborative is the wrong word. I think more innovative is the wrong word. Just be different in like the space that we're in, because there's so many people like yourself doing the traditional podcasts and stuff like that. We kind of want to mix it up and kind of figure out to be something a little bit unique in itself. So we're working on some ideas, but yeah, it's just going to be once a month.
It's going to be exciting. So you'll have this one coming up with Russ, and then y'all are going to do something before Apartmentalize in Vegas.
So we'll record Russ in May, and that will drop right before Apartmentalize. And then I think we're talking about trying to actually record a podcast at Apartmentalize. Yeah. So Todd and I are going to sit next to each other and kind of figure it out and get the guests and kind of do something like that. And so a little bit more of a live around the table piece. So because we have taken a kill the mosquito with a sledgehammer approach. There's a nice app that you're using that's wonderful. We also have to work through scheduling with our audio guy and then Julie, and trying to figure out some pieces too to get things aligned. But it is quite a fun production. So and as we joke, when Todd and I just show up, we're the talent. I mean, that's, outside of that, we're not doing much except following instructions. So our goal is actually to be guests on our own podcast the entire time going through, where we show up and just like this, like, all right, what are we talking about? It's like, here's what we're doing. Okay, let's go. So, and we just need to find a smarter person in the room. So, which is really hard because we got Todd to start with.
No. That's just not true. We're going to get we've already had Elizabeth on, who's extremely bright.
So smart person in the room already. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be very organic. And I think too, like real, like that's why I call this the real spill, because if it comes up, it comes out. And, we deal with a lot in the industry, and it's going to be really cool to see how it comes together. And that is too funny. The stars of the show are here. You can begin now.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing is that the way that we're kind of positioned is, I don't know how to put this, like, we can hit topics that are a little more like, hey, how do we want to explore this through? Because the positions that we have in the association, I mean, we're professionals, so we're not going to step on things we shouldn't step on, but we can start kind of like, hey, we're not really talking about this. How should we talk about it? And the fact that this isn't a joke. The fact that Todd's a lawyer will help keep me out of like going down angles we shouldn't. You'd be like, this isn't a good idea, Bryan. Let's not touch on this. As we've actually had in-person bar conversations, like, why aren't we talking about this? Todd's like, no.
Yeah, you can't talk about that.
Can't talk about that. I'm like, but we need to. He's like, can't talk about it. So, but like, I'm like, well, we need to have a conversation of why we're not talking about it. It's like, you could talk about that. I'm like, okay, let me start there. So like, so we can kind of explore some of those things in that realm too. So.
Yeah, it always helps to have an attorney in the room to keep like unless we're missing something as lay people, like what are the unintended consequences of this particular conversation, and what kind of blowback are we going to get if we pop open Pandora's box albeit accidentally. See, now, Todd, you have multiple roles. Like, you've served as South Carolina's general counsel, you're an NA lease attorney. Can you tell listeners a little bit about those roles and what roles you serve within associations?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm on year 4 or 5 of having the honor of serving as general counsel to the South Carolina Apartment Association, which is it's a fun role. Obviously as you know, Katie, it's a growing organization. They put some more meat to the bones of the structure, and I think it's been fun to participate in that process as general counsel. I sit as general counsel now to the Triangle Apartment Association and the Wilmington Apartment Association, and those are a little bit more established. And so, I won't say that the role is kind of on cruise control, but you're just kind of there making sure people stay within the realm of their authority and making sure that they're operating within the requirements of what the Nonprofit Corporations Act requires, and just generally corporate thought and corporate decision making. But I mean, I also participate on government affairs committees at least 3 or 4 different levels. At TAA, when I can make it, USAA, AANC, South Carolina Apartment Association. Also get to serve on the NAA Legislative Committee this year, as well as the PAC ambassadors. And I mean, I enjoy all of those. I said this on. I may have said this on the multifamily mixtape. I know I said it on Monday when we recorded our podcast. Is really my view is very Boy Scoutish in that what I want to do is leave the industry in a better place than where I found it, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that happens. Whether that's assisting in coming up with a policy, advocating for a policy, educating our clients. I mean, we talk about all the time, if we can educate ourselves out of a job, if we empower them to make their own decisions, we'll find something else to do. So I really, um, I love my job. My kids ask me if I won the lottery, what would I do? And I told them I'd probably take a little bit of time off, but then I would probably come back and do some semblance of what I'm doing now, but maybe on a slightly lighter schedule because it just wouldn't be required. But I really love engaging with clients. I love connecting people. I love selling people on the passion that our firm has for this industry and the amount that we care. And really, you know, I think I've said this as well, but the law is kind of what I tolerate to be able to do all the other stuff that I get to do, the volunteering, the giving back, the participating in policy crafting and advocating. Those are the things that I really find joy in, and doing the legal work. Yes, I enjoy helping people, but just the tediousness of legal work is not something that really drives home any passion.
And it's palpable that you genuinely care, you genuinely want to help. And I've been fortunate to work with you on several things for SCAA. Like, it's as soon as we established a committee, you and I for years were, like we said, we were beating the drum that we need this committee, and now we're like 2 years in, and we've got a bill again that's made it, that we all gave opinion on and worked on, that's made it past the House. Now it's in Senate, past the full Senate Judiciary Committee, and there's a possibility that this bill will be heard on the Senate floor while we're at our conference next week.
Which
So,
is awesome. I mean, that's
oh
awesome.
yeah, it's the good stuff. And when we've worked so hard with the senator, and John Maudlin has, to overcome any objections, and just hoping that he will see the light here. And like you said, we do a lot of educating. And one of the things I've learned as I've gotten more involved in this space is that they don't understand how our industry works, like from security deposit disbursement. And for those that might be intimidated to take their seat at the table, if you can explain to a resident what happens to their security deposit, you can explain it to your elected official because it's what you do every day. And even understanding basic fair housing laws and that kind of thing, that were really put in these places to educate. And like you said, I've said that too. That's so funny you said that, to leave the industry better than I found it. If I've ever been nominated for an award or something like that, I literally put that verbiage into my submission because the industry, I'm not going to get emotional, Lord, has given me
I
everything
would love
since
it
I
if we
was
come onto your
18.
podcast and we make you cry.
I know, right? Like, oh my God. Talking about government affairs stuff, of all things. I've got a watery eye over here anyway, because I've been cracking up laughing at y'all. But it really has given me everything since I was 18. It allowed me to, I moved out of my parents' home and through college and buying our first home, almost 20 years ago in our early 20s. And it's a wonderful industry that we work in, and it's the people and the networking and that really make it all worthwhile, because it's a lot of work, but we wouldn't do it if we didn't love it. We're a little bit gluttons for punishment, but getting a little better with delegating and getting some things off of my plate. But we've come a long way in the past couple of years with our SCAA committee. Just want more active participants to become involved. And I'm hoping that with y'all's podcast that folks will see the opportunity for all associations, wherever they are across, because hearing it nationwide and get plugged in and get involved would be the most wonderful thing that could come of it, for sure. And Bryan, with your association, you're the AE over Western North Carolina. You guys were impacted heavily by Hurricane Helene. You're still dealing with the aftermath there. How have you worked with other associations, even most recently advocating? When we were at Advocate, the NAA conference, you were able to set up some separate appointments and go and talk specifically. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, even this week, John, the AE of the North Carolina Apartment Association, and I had a call with someone with NAA who was getting collecting information about FEMA to bring it back, and we were able to explain a lot of the same things that we had. We had a meeting with the senator's office and the congressional office on talking about the storm and housing. And the thing is, the fact of the matter is that when FEMA came in right in the get-go, and it was great, emergency stuff. But when it came to long-term housing pieces, they have two focuses. They focus on single family and helping the single people that are in a single family situation, and then housing in hotels. And so these are the kind of their solutions. Now they talk about housing people in apartment communities and on the rental side, but the reality is they're built in such a way that the way that the processes are built does not correspond with the way that the industry runs. And I've been using this example a lot, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to keep beating a dead horse. Is so Fannie and Freddie loan originators, they're kind of quasi is a bad word. Quasi is probably the right word. They're government entities. I mean, the whole thing that we're dealing with on some of the other lease issues are going, hey, if this is a government program, you now have to follow government laws. And so when FEMA comes in and they say, here's what we require for our direct lease, you need, we want a 30-day out, we want an 18-month lease, and we want to be able to swap people in and out on the lease as need be, but the lease is with the individual, not with us. And I'm going, okay, this doesn't work on 3 levels. The 30 days doesn't work. You can't have a 30-day out. You can't. And like, to the point is like, we sat down and said, look, Freddie and Fannie aren't allowed to take FEMA money because FEMA doesn't follow Freddie and Fannie's rules. And like, if you guys can't get together on the back end of where you have this tight relationship, how is this going to come and help on our side, on the industry, where like people are just operating in the market? If you at least get it where Freddie and Fannie can participate in FEMA, we can probably start getting some places where we could go in and that. So, but FEMA has a workaround, and they hire third-party companies to come in, and they'll own the risk. And so, you guys got a great company down there in Greenville that actually does this in Asheville too. And they were bidding on this, but they ended up hiring a company out of California to do it. So basically they carry the risk. So they're signing the lease, which means that they're taking the full year on. If the person moves out, they're covering they're doing the vetting. And if someone comes in, it's a corporate lease, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. So the workaround. Well, but they're not located in the market. And they don't have an office here. And then there's this disconnect. We talked about people operating our industry like today, like it was 20 years ago. So if you call a property manager and you're like, hey, I want to do this, and you're hoping to get there, the property manager is then going to call the regional. The regional is then going to call the vice president. The vice president then is going to call the corporate lawyer. The corporate lawyer is then going to call the asset company. And then by the time that happens, they're calling back up with the management companies like, or the manager, like, what are we doing here? Do you think you can take this? And so like this disconnect of not understanding of who to call and who to reach out with and that kind of stuff is just so frustrating because they're like, hey, we want to give you money, but we just don't want to follow any of the rules of typically how we would need to do to give you money. We just want to do it our way and hope you'll accept it. So we've been talking a lot about that frustration. There's another frustration on the other side is that when FEMA comes in on the repair piece, they're giving a lot of money to help rebuild single family homes, and including single family rentals. So if you're mom and pop and you have a couple single family rentals in there, you can get in and get that money. If you own an apartment community, so let's say you own a building 20 units, tree came in, smashed it out, you're a naturally occurable affordable housing, an older thing like that, you can't get FEMA money because you are considered commercial because you have commercial insurance because you're multifamily. So again, it's like, okay, we all know that these housing communities are where people's rents are the most flexible. There's not a lot of money. No one's thinking, even in the television shows, no one's thinking these landlords are making a ton of money. The margin's small, and now they have to do the repair. There's no FEMA money that's coming in. You're working with your insurance company. And so all this is going to do is drive up rents. It's all predictable. Close down, cause the property to sell. It's going to churn through. And the thing is like, here's your problem. Here's your solution. And it's the government. So hopefully we'll fix this for the 2035 storm when that one hits. But it's just that frustration of like, it's like trying to use a Microsoft operating system on an Apple computer. You're like, I know how this is supposed to work, but nothing is allowing me to do this.
Roadblocks. I would have never thought about that, but you're right. Like oh my gosh, what a mess. When you had the meeting, was it with Chuck Edwards? Is that who you met with?
So we had a good meeting with Chuck Edwards' office. Chuck Edwards has done a great job. His people have been on the ground. Tom Tillis and Bud's office has both been great. We had a great meeting with a Bud staffer who's actually working on this and tackling some FEMA stuff and kind of explaining it through and going through the entire process. And again, it's that first thing of like, here, all we want to do is in our meetings, we sat down and say, here's what we want you to know. It's complicated. We're experts. And we're begging you to invite us to the conversation. So when you build these rules and regulations, you can understand what's going to work and what's not going to work. Because what is ridiculous is the fact is you get a whole bunch of policy people together and a whole bunch of advocates together, and they're creating these rules. And then the industry comes back and goes, well, this isn't going to work. And it's like, why aren't you using this? It's because you never asked us how to make this work. And this is not going to work.
That is so true.
Our only ask is to be invited to the conversations. And you think it's the simple ask, but I think it's the hardest.
And you've worked with NAA, of course, on this. I'm so glad to see or know that they are taking this up as a significant issue because this could happen anywhere, and it does happen other places. I was talking to Bonnie Schmetzer. She's on the legislative committee with us. We were talking about that and how it has impacted Florida and the coast of South Carolina. It's such a wider problem than this one. Just brought it right in everyone's faces very quickly that this is something they've got to fix quickly.
And to go in on a soapbox a second, this is why associations exist. I mean, the awards dinners are fun. right? The socials and the gathering are important. The networking is piece. But if you look historically at why associations started, the local association started around some regulatory government affairs issue, and a whole bunch of owners got together and said, this is something we can't fight on our own. Why are we all hiring different lawyers to go through this? If we work together, we can make a change. And I think that somewhere in our association work, this piece has gotten lost. And it has more about the awards dinner, and it's more about the socials and more about the education pieces. And all those are really fine. But the one thing that can't take place without an association is the industry coming together collectively and saying, this is how we're going to do things going forward. And I think that's the piece, which I'm really glad you have this government affairs conversation you're doing, the work that you guys are doing in South Carolina, when you're bringing everyone together and saying, hey, look, there's more here to understand. And we can't send 45 people to have one conversation. We're going to have this one person is representing 45 people. And I think that's underlying why did Todd and I hang out? Because this is our sweet spot. We really believe this is where the value that associations come in, and everything else that associations are working on, like this has to be the piece that goes forward.
I agree. I've said often the advocacy leg of the mission statement cannot afford to skip leg day. And and it does happen. I think it helps to have a paid government affairs person at each affiliate. And I think if we have that goal, which I know Joy knows, that's my next thing is, hey, I've been over this for a long time. I think the affiliate's doing well enough to hire someone because it's not if these issues are going to come, it's when and how we handle them. And to your point with bringing folks together, sometimes I find myself in a really weird spot because I represent the firm. I'm the chair of the legislative committee for the association for South Carolina, and I'm over USAAs and find myself in circles with what would be considered tenants' rights, tenants' advocates, and having to dance that very delicate song and dance to, and that's why I'll bring Todd into the picture a lot of times, like, hey, I've got to represent Labesack and Brownlee here. Will you represent SCAA? And behind the scenes, have to have those conversations of it's not going to work. And I'm just didn't it just kind of happen through Tina Belgi with the Greenville Housing Fund that I found myself involved in a lot of these conversations. But as a lot of times I'm finding that the people that are making the decisions are going to the realtors and they're not coming to us. And it creates confusion. And that's why I've talked to our lobbyist in South Carolina, to Annie, like, hey, I know you have a relationship with them, but I also want to have a relationship with them. I think we can collaborate like the NAA does. They collaborate a lot with the realtors. And if we're all singing from the same songbook, if we're all part of the same conversations from the jump, we don't have what you were describing of lots of work and all these moving pieces going in and us coming to the table and going, scratch all of it, every single bit. Nope, not going to work. No.
Yeah, I think those coalitions are extremely important. I mean, I think North Carolina has done a pretty good job of coordinating with not only the realtors but the Home Builders Association, and when the alignment is correct, even the hospitality industry, from time to time, we get an alignment and have discussions and get behind promoting a particular bill or opposing a particular bill. And I think when you do that, it only multiplies exponentially the result because our industry does a poor job of actually collecting PAC funds, whereas realtors do an insanely good job at collecting PAC money. I've got my own views on that probably aren't appropriate for the podcast, but yeah, I mean, the realtors raise a ton of PAC money.
Oh yeah, and we could definitely have that conversation offline. My best friend is with the realtor. She's who connected me with the advocacy folks from the realtors here in South Carolina. Their top, I don't know if I sent this to you because I know you're a sneaker person. I meant to if I didn't. What they do for their top PAC donors, they have a contract with Nike. They have custom Jordans made for their lobby day. So to get into leadership with NAR, you have to be a top PAC donor. You have to tap out, and I'm assuming theirs is ours, same as ours, 5,000. I don't know, but I'm assuming. But So they tap out at that. They go through leadership. And that way it creates a conversation like, oh, what are all these people? And their shoes are purple because it's a bipartisan pack, and blue and red make purple. And I mentioned that to Jim. I'm like, maybe like long-term goal, this is really cool. And for those of us ladies who are, and y'all too, it's hard to find comfortable shoes. And you've been with me. I'll put on my heels for the picture, but we are wearing flats, and it'd be nice to have some custom J's when we go
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
hill
that would be pretty sweet.
for sure. And as we're kind of winding down, two questions for each of you guys. What are you looking forward to most the rest of this year? And y'all are both so busy. How do you wind down and just recreate the calm, like the balance in your life, which I'm not convinced exists personally.
Bryan, you want to go first?
I don't know if I can answer the second one, but I can answer the first one. So I got some family vacation coming up. So all my kids are older, and we're going to go to Puerto Rico here in May, the end of May. So looking forward to that. So did this thing which Todd's now heard this story like 5 times, and I'm not sure if it's a great idea or not, but all the kids. So when you graduate, you can pick a place where you want to go, and so each kid has topped the other one. So it started with New York City, which is fun. The next kid was Hawaii, and the last kid's like, we're going to go to Puerto Rico. And I'm like, this is supposed to be a continental U.S. thing. I thought we were going to go to like the Rockies and it'd be like family time and stuff like that. Of course, Mom has been doubling down on all these ideas of like, hey, you know where we should go. So it's going to be fun. It's family vacation with older adult children is a little more relaxed. They fight harder, but you get more adulting. So a lot more book reading and stuff like that. So looking forward to that. The irony of that is I will come out Puerto Rico, get back on Saturday, and then I'll fly to apartmentalize on Sunday. So it's going to be a very too busy weeks rolling into that. Downtime. I don't have downtime. Work-life balance, which I encourage you all to do. Mine is extremely unbalanced. I'm kind of running 2 companies right now. I'm typically working till 1 o'clock in the morning, which is not extremely healthy. But I'm the fact that I'm building my own company, the fact that we're building this, we're doing something fun. It's kind of my hobby. I got the older kids, so I don't have that young responsibility of things going in the house. It's kind of my time to set and do this work. It's kind of all in on that. I do tell you that I'm trying to find other things to talk about besides work-related stuff with friends and family, because I think they're done. And so, which, it's interesting because the apartment stuff is half of what we're doing. So on the other side of the company, we're doing a lot of stuff around government relations, some lobbying work, communication, stuff like that. We're working on a couple local campaigns, like a city bond campaign stuff. We're not working on politicians' campaigns, but plugged into that. So it's pretty much go. So, Todd, tell us how you're working out like at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, no,
and
I'll first say,
2-a-day workouts at conference.
what am I looking forward to this year, or for the rest of the year? I mean, I do have a 12 and a 10-year-old, and so we just got back from a trip mid-April to Punta Cana, but we changed the phraseology. Any trip with your kids is not a vacation; it's just a trip, and so it is not as relaxing. My wife and I are coming up on our 20-year anniversary, so my kids are going to be in. The older one's doing 2 weeks of camp. The younger one is doing 1 week of camp that overlaps with the 2 weeks that the other one is doing. That's in late July, early August. And so I think my wife, who wants to stay within driving distance in case something happens at camp, I'm like, let's teach them resilience and go somewhere away, and they'll have to figure it out. If there's a problem, we'll tell them to sit tight. But we're going to go to there's a really nice resort, strangely outside of Danville, Virginia, called Primland. It's very nice. And I think we're going to go there from like a Monday through Thursday, just the two of us. And so that will be an actual good and relaxing trip to take. What I do to kind of unwind or reach a zen, I do a lot of reading or books, audiobooks. As Bryan knows, and you do as well, Katie, I get up pretty early. I, if I'm going to get a workout in, it needs to be before work because I do have a 12 and a 10-year-old. I do help with homework. And so if I don't want to impact my time with them, I've got to make sacrifices other places. And so I do regularly get up at 4:40 to get to the gym by 5 and do a workout, get home, take shower, take kids to school. My wife picks them up and runs them around all afternoon. I also, I don't know that it does a great for returning zen, but I do try and play golf any chance I can get. I love the sport, even though I'm not as good at it as I feel like I should be. Um, but I think that's part of the mental challenge. It's one of the few sports that is both mentally and physically challenging if you make it so. And so it is kind of getting back to that same solving a problem, and you're trying to figure out how to get the ball from here to in the cup, and you can do it in any number of ways. But it is both extremely frustrating, but also um, there's nothing else like it that I've ever participated in from a sports standpoint. And it's the ball dropping in a cup is probably one of my favorite sounds beyond a basketball swooshing through a net. I mean, I'm grew up being a basketball player, and unfortunately, I stopped growing and am only 5'10". If I was 6'2" or 6'3", and then I feel like I probably would have played at a relatively mid-sized Division III school for college, but I was not gifted with those genes. So um, all of that gets me a little centered and allows me to both parent. I do volunteer at my church, which also helps with that, and then obviously participating with associations. I sleep maybe 6-ish hours a night. When I'm at home. On the road, that may not always be the case, but it does tend to help me get centered.
Well, I'm so excited for both of y'all to have your family vacations, your family trips. That's a friend. Funny you said that. A friend of mine who has, gosh, she only had two at the time, but now she has four. No, I think she has five. Oh my gosh, she would say it's a family trip. It's not a vacation. And you got your ours. Jackson's 16, so we don't have to. We can kind of lay back at the beach a little bit, but I still have that mom instinct of where's he at? Where's he at? Where's he at? Kind of thing. But when you're able to take a trip alone with your spouse, that's going to be so much fun. Y'all are going to like remember what it's like to be Todd and Christy. Brad and I had to find that at one point in our marriage too of what's it like to be Katie and Brad and not just mom and dad and remember those times and is so important. And you guys are going to have a blast, Bryan. Excited to see you both here in the next couple of months. And I always wrap up my episodes. Y'all know I'm a big hip hop fan. I've got my "It Was All a Dream" sign over here. Or do you guys have a favorite song? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw this question when you forwarded us kind of the advanced sheet, and you know, I can't say that I have a favorite song. I mean, I love all music. I love live music. I listen to anything from classical music through the genre of bluegrass, jam band, hip hop, into rap, and everything in between. So it's really hard for me to narrow down the selection. I mean, I thought, well, is it my wedding song? But I don't even know that I really like that song anymore. So it's I don't know that I have a favorite song. I will say, and it's probably not a song that most people are familiar with unless they're in North Carolina or are familiar with the University of North Carolina. But obviously, our alma mater song that they play at the end of every football and basketball game hits me in a special way. So I love UNC, and it is deep within my blood. So that song hits me in a certain spot.
It's a cult, by the way.
A cult.
A cult, yes. If you don't know this, Carolina, by the time you're in your junior year, you have either fully accepted that you are part of the cult and you are in and you're indoctrinated, and or you have rejected it and you don't talk about it at all. And I will tell you, I think the cult conversion rate for Carolina is in the high 80 percentile. So yeah. I'm partial to Madonna's Holiday. Celebrate. I think that is always fun. So if I have to have a song that's going to be plugged in on that. My actual favorite song, I was kind of thinking through this like Todd was, it's kind of hard to, looking at a genre or a time of your life or kind of stuff like this. But I've always really liked Knocking on Heaven's Door. And it's a Dylan song. And then, of course, every Dylan song is better when it's played not by Dylan. So it's the Guns N' Roses version of Knocking on Heaven's Door. I've always thought it's really great. I didn't realize that I like that bluegrassy type of music. And that's actually what that is. And, the core of what the song is. So Knocking on Heaven's Door, we'll go with that one as a final answer, Alex.
Awesome. I'll have to go back and listen. Now I've got it stuck in my head. I'll have to go back and listen. I'm not familiar with UNC's song, Todd. I'm going to have to look that up today.
Yeah.
And see what that
I
is.
think it's called Hark the Sound.
I think it's the only song that actually references their rival in a disparaging way. Am I wrong?
I don't.
You don't know if that's in the official version?
Yeah, it's not in the official version.
I've never heard a version where it's not where it's not included. So
my wheels are turning now. Who is the rival? Is it NC State?
No, it's our rival is Duke. I think NC State thinks that we're their rival, but really our rival is Duke.
Okay, I do remember that.
NC State is a neighboring school to Carolina. If you had asked people of Carolina,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. My cousin's cousin went to NC State, so she's a diehard member of the Wolf Pack, and so that's how I'm familiar with that. But just of course here in South Carolina, we have I would tell people when they were moving to the area, you have to pledge allegiance now when you get here. You've got to be a Clemson fan, or you've got to be a University of South Carolina fan. So.
Yeah. Now, just so you know, I have a daughter that attended, so that's how I know so much about. And she's fully in on the cult. So I have more Carolina gear now than I know what to do with. So
she's part of the 80%. She got converted.
Definitely.
That's great. Well, thank you guys again so much for coming on today. And folks, definitely check out The Associated. And is it where you can get any podcast, YouTube, Spotify?
It is. It's at all those places. Todd will make sure he likes to say, go fully in on The Associated. Don't stop at the Association Press, their version of podcast. But you can also, we have a website, which I'll plug shamelessly, CLTPR Management /pod. And you can find episode 0, the trailers. You can find our guest appearances. This will actually be housed there. So we're putting all the content there for now.
Great. I'm looking forward to listening in. And thank you guys so much for listening to our conversation today here on the Multifamily Media Network. Till next time.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of The Real Spill, a podcast where I spill on all things multifamily advocacy and how we as industry professionals can work together with our elected officials, stakeholders, and allies to bring about change for the rental housing industry. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've learned something new. Now, go be a voice. Until next time, Spills out.